It stands as one of the most dreaded strongholds in all of Middle-earth, a fortress where shadows linger and ancient evils still whisper through the ruins. Once the heart of a dark kingdom, its walls bore witness to the rise of the Witch King himself, and its legacy continues to haunt the frozen north. This is Carn-Dûm, the forsaken citadel of Angmar, and today we uncover the terrifying secrets that lie within its blackened stones. Chapter 1: The Frozen Gate. The wind shrieked across the northern wastes, a voice both wild and mournful, as if the land itself remembered sorrow older than any living man. Snow drifted in broken waves along the jagged ridges of the misty hills, burying paths long forgotten. And somewhere beyond that endless white, the stones of Carn-Dûm still stood. Blackened, half-buried, yet unbroken, the ancient fortress of the Witch King endured the passage of centuries. To approach it was to walk into silence, into the breath of forgotten graves. Carn-Dûm was no ordinary stronghold. It was the beating heart of Angmar, the icy throne from which the Witch King ruled with iron malice. In the days when Arnor still held sway over the north, its riders rode forth from that grim keep, bringing fire and ruin upon the scattered realms of men. Yet when Angmar fell, Carn-Dûm did not vanish into dust as other fortresses do. No, it lingered, it endured, and in the silence of its downfall, whispers took root. For those who have braved the shadow of its ruined halls speak of strange things, of voices carried upon the wind, calling in tongues long dead, of pale figures glimpsed upon the battlements, watching, waiting, of fires seen burning within the black halls, though none live there now. Some tell that the very stones are cursed, for they were steeped in the will of the Witch King, who wove into their walls more than iron and mortar. He bound into them the dread of his sorcery, a malice that does not fade with time. But who or what haunts Carn-Dûm? The old tales speak of wraiths, shadows without form, fragments of those who served the Iron Crown and fell when Angmar was broken. These spirits, it is said, are bound by oaths never fulfilled. Soldiers who swore to fight until the last, their bones now dust beneath the snow, but their wills chained still to their master's fortress. They wander their ruins in silence, armored in shadows, their eyes like coals in the dark. Some travelers claim to have heard the clatter of spectral hooves echoing down forgotten roads, the ghostly riders of Angmar who ride forever, never reaching the wars they once sought. Others tell of captives, for Carn-Dûm was not only a fortress of war, but a dungeon of torment. Many of the faithful of Arnor were dragged in chains into its depths, never to be seen again. Their voices, it is whispered, still linger. When the wind cuts through the black towers, it carries with it the sound of weeping, a chorus of sorrow so faint and so mournful that even the hardiest ranger feels his blood turn cold. Yet darker still are the legends of the Witch King himself. Though his spirit was drawn south to serve the Dark Lord in the great wars of the Ring, some believe that fragments of his power remain here, echoes, shadows, phantoms of his will. A whisper of command in the still air, a sudden weight upon the soul as one draws too close to the gates. They say the Witch King's gaze lingers still, though his form has long since departed. Carn-Dûm is more than ruin. It is a wound upon the land, one that festers still, bleeding shadows into the snows of the north. And as the long night of winter descends upon Angmar, the spirits that dwell there seem to grow restless, as if awaiting some summons that has not yet come. But to understand what haunts Carn-Dûm, one must first know what it was, and how it came to cast so long and dreadful a shadow across the north. Chapter 2: The Rise of Angmar. Long before the snow claimed the northern hills, before the forests of Arnor grew silent with fear, there was the kingdom of Angmar. It rose like a shadow upon the waning lands of men, born not of stone or timber, but of malice, cunning, and a will that brooked no rival. The Witch King, lord of that fell domain, was a being both terrible and subtle, a servant of Sauron, yet his own master of terror, a lord who wove dread as one might weave a cloak. The chronicles of the North tell of Arnor's slow decay, of kings who quarreled with each other, leaving the land divided and weak. Into this fractured realm, Angmar came as a storm. From the dark peaks of the Ettenmoors to the frozen passes of the north, the Witch King's influence spread. Villages burned in the night, towns were abandoned, their walls left to crumble under the biting winds. And the rivers themselves seemed to carry whispers of sorrow downstream. The very air was heavy with fear, for none could tell where the next strike would fall.
Maps, though faded and worn, mark the seat of this power. Carn-Dûm, high upon its cliffs, looking down upon all roads of the north. From this black fortress, the Witch King marshaled his forces, armies of orcs, of men swayed to evil, and of creatures that dared not show themselves in daylight. His spies crept across the hills, gathering secrets, and his minions sowed terror in every village. By the time Arnor's kings mustered their strength, it was already too late. The Witch King had already planted fear like seed in soil, and it took root in the hearts of men. Yet Angmar's reign was not merely one of conquest. It was an empire of shadows, of whispers, of spirits bound to the land itself. Even those who never set foot in Carn-Dûm could feel the oppression of its presence. Shepherds abandoned their flocks, leaving the pastures to wolves. Travelers avoided the northern passes, taking long detours that added weeks to their journeys. And for those brave enough, or foolish enough, to venture near Carn-Dûm, the fortress itself seemed alive, as though the stones themselves watched and judged, shifting subtly beneath the moonlight to ensnare the unwary. The annals tell of battles that were never truly fought in the open. Armies would vanish into the mists, ambushed by shadowy foes who seemed to melt into the very air. Entire regiments of Arnor soldiers were found days later, frozen and lifeless, their eyes wide in terror, their mouths silent in eternal scream. Some say they had seen the spirits of Angmar, pale forms in the moonlight, riding black steeds, armed with swords that gleamed not with steel, but with darkness. Others believed the dead of the north walked again, bound to the Witch King's will, forced to serve in a war that had no end. It was during these years that the legends began, tales of men who entered Carn-Dûm and never returned, of travelers who fled, only to describe corridors that stretched beyond reason, halls that shifted, doors that led to nowhere. And always the whispers, soft, insistent, curling through the night like smoke. Leave this place, they seemed to say, or remain forever. Even among his own servants, the Witch King inspired dread. Orc captains trembled before him, and men who had pledged their loyalty whispered in secret, for they knew that his favor could be as deadly as his wrath. His power was cunning as well as cruel. Not all who fell under it died outright. Some were taken, broken, and bound to his service as spirits, shadows, or restless echoes. And these echoes are the first of the lingering presences one speaks of when speaking of Carn-Dûm. By the end of Angmar's ascendancy, the north had become a haunted land. Ruin and fear stretched from the Etten Moors to the Barrow Downs. And though the Witch King's armies were eventually broken by the alliances of men and elves, Carn-Dûm itself was never fully claimed. The fortress, though empty of life, remained a beacon of shadow, a place where the dead might wander, and the echoes of terror lingered, refusing to dissipate even as centuries passed. And so we come to the spirits themselves, the restless entities that haunt Carn-Dûm, whose tales are stitched into the very stones of the fortress, whose cries are carried on the northern winds, and whose presence lingers long after armies have faded. To understand their sorrow, one must first walk in the silence of those halls and hear what the walls themselves whisper to the brave or the foolish. Chapter 3: The Spirits of Carn-Dûm. Carn-Dûm is never truly empty. The stones remember, the wind remembers, and some say the very shadows remember, carrying with them fragments of souls that never found peace. To speak of these spirits is to walk a path between fear and fascination, for they are not mere phantoms, but echoes of history bound in anguish, malice, or duty. The first are the Wraiths. Not all Wraiths are alike, yet all share a common sorrow. They are fragments of those who fell under the Witch King's dominion. Soldiers, servants, and captives alike, whose lives were stolen and whose wills were bent to his cruel purpose. These Wraiths are most often seen on the battlements, their eyes flickering like dying embers in the moonlight. Travelers report hearing the clatter of ghostly hooves on broken stone, the dragging of spectral blades across frozen earth. Some claim the Wraiths whisper, in languages long forgotten, secrets of battles that cannot be remembered. "Why do you linger?" one traveler asked aloud, voice trembling when he glimpsed a figure upon the crumbled ramparts. The answer came not in words, but in a chill wind that blew through his bones, and the figure faded into the mist, leaving only the faintest echo of a sigh. Next are the lost souls, those who were prisoners, tortured, or trapped within the fortress's walls. They are the wailing chorus, the quiet lament that drifts upon the northern winds. Often they are glimpsed in the ruined halls, shadows pressing against stone, or lights flickering where no fire burns. Some scholars believe these souls linger because their lives ended without closure, snatched abruptly by the Witch King's relentless campaign. They do not seek vengeance, but their grief manifests as unease, a weight that presses upon the living as they approach the ruins. Many who ventured into Carn-Dûm centuries ago left writings that survive in fragments, journals, letters, and whispered oral accounts. One such account tells of a ranger who followed a hidden path into the fortress, hoping to recover a relic of Arnor. He spoke of corridors that seemed to extend beyond reason, doors that opened into walls, and at the end, a hall filled with translucent figures who stared silently, as if weighing his soul. He fled, never to return, leaving only a single page in his journal. "I felt their sorrow, not anger, not malice, only longing, and it is more terrible than any blade." Then there are the guardian spirits. These are rarer, but more formidable. Bound by ancient magics or the Witch King's lingering will, they do not wander aimlessly. They watch, they protect. Some scholars argue they are fragments of the Witch King himself, remnants of his authority infused into the stones. Travelers have described seeing forms standing motionless upon battlements, their presence unnerving, their silence heavy with intent. Approach too closely, and the air itself thickens, carrying the sense of judgment, of an unbroken oath that no mortal may disregard. The legends speak of encounters too terrifying to fully recount. One tale tells of a merchant who sought shelter during a snowstorm. Finding a ruined hall, he lit a small fire, but when he turned, he found the shadows had grown long, coalescing into shapes that mirrored his deepest fears. The fire died suddenly, leaving him in darkness, until at last the shapes receded with the dawn. He survived, yet he never spoke of what he saw, except to write one cryptic line: "The stones remember all. The walls do not forgive." Even among the living, some who journey into the north swear they feel the spirits without ever seeing them. A chill upon the neck, the faint brush of a hand upon the shoulder, whispers in the night that vanish when turned toward. The Witch King's malice lingers in these acts, carried forward in echoes, tying the present to horrors long past. And there is a final, more subtle presence. Some call it the shadow of the king. Not fully the Witch King, not fully his will, but a fragment of him, lingering, watching, as if measuring the hearts of those who dare approach his forsaken seat. To meet this shadow is not death, not yet, but a confrontation with the memory of all Carn-Dûm has witnessed: triumphs, defeats, betrayals, and despair. Those who return from such an encounter speak of dreams haunted by cold light and black stone, of waking to feel the weight of unseen eyes, and of hearing the distant echo of a horn that calls them back.
The spirits of Carn-Dûm are many, and their stories are endless. Yet they are not merely a terror to be feared. They are a testament to the power of will, to the consequences of cruelty, and to the sorrow that lingers where history has been broken. To walk among them is to confront the past itself, to witness the weaving of fate and shadow, and to feel the enduring weight of a king's ambition, one that death itself has not quelled. Chapter 4: Legendary Encounters. Few who enter Carn-Dûm emerge unchanged, and fewer still return to tell of it. Among the tales whispered in the taverns of Bree, in the halls of Gondor, and along the northern roads, there are stories that chill the blood and stir the imagination. Some are fragmentary, some exaggerated with time, yet all carry a thread of truth. The fortress is alive in its own dreadful way. One account speaks of Eldred, a ranger of the north, who sought passage through Angmar to deliver a message of warning to the northern watchers of Arnor. He came in the dead of winter, when the snow lay deep and the trees groaned under its weight. He recalls a path that twisted unnaturally, bending back upon itself as though the land itself sought to confuse him. When he reached the outskirts of Carn-Dûm, he saw them, wraiths on horseback, black as storm clouds, their eyes burning faintly red. The sound of their hooves did not strike the snow. It seemed to echo from inside his own mind. Eldred later wrote, "I raised my sword, though I knew no blade could harm them. I called to them, yet my voice was swallowed by silence. They passed as though I were not but a shadow, and then, all at once, they were gone. Yet their presence remained, heavy, cold, endless. I cannot say I truly fled. It is more accurate to say I was spared, or perhaps allowed to live only to bear witness." Another story comes from an unnamed merchant who sought shelter during a blizzard. He stumbled upon a ruined hall near the fortress gates, walls blackened with age and frost.
Lighting a fire from the last embers of his torch, he tried to rest, but shadows moved where no light could reach. Forms emerged, pale, indistinct, yet terrifyingly deliberate. He reported hearing voices, soft and urgent. "Turn back. Leave this place. It is not for the living." When he finally fled at first light, he carried with him the echo of their whispers, which haunted him for years. In the dead of night, he would wake in cold sweat, feeling unseen eyes upon him, the faint brush of ghostly fingers tracing along his skin. There is also the tale of Sir Aldric of Cardolan, a knight who ventured into Carn-Dûm seeking a relic stolen by servants of the Witch King in ages past. He recounts a hall that stretched impossibly long, its walls lined with shadowy forms, each motionless yet perceptive. When he drew his sword, he realized the air itself resisted him, thickened with unseen intent. A whisper, not audible but felt deep within his mind, said, "You trespass. You will not leave." Sir Aldric escaped, only because he was cunning enough to turn back when the shadows advanced. Yet even in the sunlight of Cardolan, he said he could still feel the fortress's gaze, as though the stones themselves had mocked him, recording his intrusion. These encounters are not limited to human visitors. Scholars note that even beasts avoid the region. Wolves skirt the forests, birds circle in tight, uneasy patterns above, and horses sense danger before their riders do. It is as if the spirits of Carn-Dûm have spread beyond the walls, marking the land itself with an invisible hand. Some of the most chilling tales involve the remnants of Angmar's army. There are rumors of ghostly formations of soldiers endlessly marching upon the frozen plains, indistinguishable from shadows at dusk. Travelers describe seeing them vanish when approached, only to hear the faintest echo of marching boots in the distance. And some claim that the Witch King's power, though departed, lingers in these manifestations, a testament to the enduring terror he once commanded. Yet perhaps the most unnerving aspect of these encounters is not the fear they inspire, but the sense of history pressing upon the present. Every spirit, every whisper, every shadow carries the weight of centuries of cruelty, ambition, and sorrow. They are the remnants of choices made long ago, the echoes of lives interrupted and wills broken. And those who encounter them feel the haunting truth. Some evils leave traces that even time cannot erase. Carn-Dûm is not merely a place of ruin. It is a nexus of memory, malice, and lingering will. Each encounter, whether with wraith, lost soul, or guardian spirit, reminds the living of the consequences of history, of the thin line that separates life from the shadow. And though many have fled, the fortress endures, waiting, watching, carrying its dark legacy across the centuries. Chapter 5: The Haunting Legacy of Carn-Dûm. Carn-Dûm endures. Though Angmar's armies have long since fallen, though the Witch King himself marched south to fulfill his Dark Master's bidding, the fortress remains, a sentinel of shadow, a monument to ambition and terror. The winds that whip across its frozen battlements carry more than snow. They carry memory, sorrow, and the faint, persistent echo of what once was. Scholars of Middle-earth note that Carn-Dûm is unique among ruins. Unlike Barad-dûr, which radiates the overwhelming will of Sauron, or the Lonely Mountain, which hums faintly with the memory of dwarven craft,
Carn-Dûm is haunted in a quieter, subtler way. Its spirits are fragments, whispers, the detritus of fear itself. And it is precisely this subtlety that makes the hauntings so unsettling. The Witch King's power was never merely martial, it was psychological, insidious. Even in absence, it persists. Consider the ranger who followed the hidden road past the Etten moors. He never saw a living soul, yet he felt the weight of centuries pressing upon his shoulders, felt the fortress judge his every step. Or the merchant whose firelight revealed shadows moving in impossible ways, and who left with a lingering dread that no warm hearth could ease. These encounters, whether historical or imagined, illuminate a truth of Middle-earth. Places themselves can hold memory, and memory can become perilous. The spirits of Carn-Dûm are not malevolent for Malice's sake alone. They are bound to history, to broken oaths, to the consequences of unbridled ambition. They are a reminder that even in defeat, cruelty leaves its mark. The wraiths of soldiers, the mournful lost souls, the silent guardian spirits, they all tell a story of a land scarred by war, haunted not by the dead themselves, but by what the living once wrought. Some have speculated about the fate of these souls. Are they trapped forever, doomed to wander the ruins? Or do they, in time, find a measure of release? Tolkien's own texts suggest that all beings, even wraiths, are tied to the moral order of Arda. Nothing is eternal without reason. Perhaps the spirits of Carn-Dûm endure not out of spite, but because their story has yet to be fully acknowledged, their grief not fully honored. As twilight falls over the northern hills, the fortress seems to breathe with the wind. Shadows stretch long, then vanish. The stones glint faintly beneath the moon. A distant whisper curls along the ridges. And though we, the living, may never dwell within its walls, we can bear witness to its legacy, a chilling, awe-inspiring testament to history's weight, to the endurance of memory, and to the lingering presence of those who cannot rest. Carn-Dûm teaches us that even the most desolate places have a story, that even the faintest echo of malice can endure across centuries, and that the spirits of the past are never fully gone. For those who journey into the north, whether in imagination or in perilous reality, the fortress stands as both warming and monument, a place where the living meet the shadow of what has been. And yet, the story does not end here. Beyond the northern wastes, beyond the ruins of Angmar, there are other places where shadow lingers, where history whispers, and where the souls of the past continue to shape the present. What waits in the dark forests of Fangorn, or beneath the lonely peaks of the Misty Mountains? What secrets do the lands of Mordor still hide, even after the fall of the Dark Lord? If you have been captivated by the spirits of Carn-Dûm, there are more tales of Middle-earth waiting to be explored. Other ruins, other shadows, other whispers of history that have yet to be fully heard. To continue the journey, to delve deeper into the mysteries of Arda, subscribe and follow along, for the lands of the past are never truly silent, and the spirits of Middle-earth are never far from those willing to listen. The fortress endures. The wind carries whispers, and somewhere, in the cold shadows of the north, the spirits of Carn-Dûm wait, patient, eternal, haunting the edge of memory itself.